Welcome to the PG course of Computer Science. Let us look into the 34th module of Web Technology, which is JSP. The JSP part 2 of JSP. Earlier we have seen the part 1. In the part 1 we have discussed about what is JSP, advantages of JSP, how it has to be installed and deployed, what is the usage of the server scripting language, along with the tags which are used in JSP with its syntax, and some small programs which are applicable with JSP. Now let us look into the advanced concepts of JSP. This is about the learning objectives of the current session. We are going to understand the functionality of JSP elements or action tags. Also we are going to learn about the nature and functionality of JSP implement objects, the usage of Java beans, that is the creation of Java beans as well as the usage of Java beans along with the JSP, and to understand the session tracking using JSP. These are the things we are going to see in the current session. First, let us look through the JSP elements. This can also be called as action tags. What do we mean by actions? Actions are high level JSP elements which could be used to create, modify or use other objects. JSP action tags are normally coded using strict XML syntax form. By the use of JSP action elements, we can dynamically insert a file, we can reuse a Java bean component, we can forward from one JSP page to another JSP page, we can generate HTML for the Java plugin. All of these things can be possible with this action. Now let us look through. These are the standard action tags which gives you the dynamic behavior of the JSP page. These are called as JSP elements, or even we can call it as JSP action tags. The first one is called as param tag, which is nothing but a parameter. Then JSP include tag, forward tag, fallback tag, plugin, use bean. Under use bean we may have two more tags called as set property and get property. First let us look through the very first tag, which is called as parameter tag, which we call it as JSP param action. This tag is used to provide additional information in the form of name value pairs to the current request. This tag cannot be used as a single or this tag cannot be used alone. Always this tag has to be used in conjunction with the include tag, forward tag and plugin action. You can go through the syntax of the parameter tag, JSP :param, where param stands for parameter. The name is equal to some name for the parameter has to be given as along with the value. Value gives the value of the parameter. Example, we can go through that JSP : because I told you already that this has to be used along with include tag, forward tag and plugin tag. So the following example, the parameter is going to be used along with the include tag. So JSP include. So the page use process.jsp. It is going to include process.jsp. There we are going to create a parameter name user and the value is Mona. The second parameter name session ID and value is 1234D3F. This parameter tag, actually this is used to provide some additional information about this name and value pair. Other than that it does not have any meaning. It is going to give some additional information about this. Next comes the include tag. In using include tag, we may be, that is using include tag, we may try to include the content of another resource such as JSP, HTML or servlet file inside the current JSP page. The JSP include tag can be used to include static pages as well as the dynamic pages. There is no need that only static pages has to be done, even dynamic pages can also be included in it. The JSP include action tag, it includes the resource at the request time and it is asking for better dynamic pages. The advantage of JSP include tag is code reusability. We can use the page many times. It saves a lot of time. Even a small example is if you want to include header and footer for many pages, means once it can be created and using the include tag it can be included in many JSP pages. That is why we say that code reusability and it saves a lot of time. Now let us look through an example, syntax as well as an example for the JSP include tag. If we go through the syntax of JSP include page, it consists of relative URL. Apart from the relative URL, if we want to include a scriptlet or an expression, that we can include it. Again, once again we can go through the syntax where the JSP include comes along with parameter, because we have seen parameter cannot come alone, it has to come along with include tag. So JSP include page is equal to relative URL. Along with that, one scriptlet has been included. Then JSP parameter name, which gives you additional information about the name as well as the value. So a scriptlet expression has been included. So include means this is going to include a particular page in the current page. That is what the include tag. Now we can see an example for it. In the index.jsp is the main page or the current JSP page. It is going to have JSP : include page is equal to print date.jsp. So this current index.jsp is going to include a new JSP page called print date.jsp. If you go through the print date.jsp, it is just nothing but an expression or a scriptlet where it tries to print today is java.util.calendar.get instance, getting the instance of the current date and time that has been printed with today is. This is one more page. This page can be included in the current page. Now let us have a small look through about the differences between the include action tag of JSP and the include directive of JSP. In the last class we have studied about the include directives. Directives means it comes with @ symbol. So there is include directive as well as include action tag. What is the difference between these two? First, the syntax has been displayed. JSP include page is equal to some page name has to be given, whereas in an include directory @ symbol include file is equal to the resource file what you want to include has to be given. Both of them looks to be same and simple, but where it varies. The first one, when does inclusion occurs? In the first case, the inclusion occurs during the request time itself, whereas in the second case, the inclusion occurs only in the page translation time. Translation means once we convert the JSP into the servlet, only in that time it takes place. Then the next question, what is included? In the first case, only output of the included page has been taken, whereas in the second case, the entire content of the file or actual content of the file has been included as it is. Okay. How many servlets results out of this? In the first case, more than one servlet, because we require one servlet for the main page and one servlet for included page. If many pages are included, then many servlets will get compiled for that. Whereas in the later stage, only one servlet will come out because included file is inserted into the main page itself. So for all of these things, the whole page gets translated. What about the maintenance? In the first case, changes in included pages does not require recompilation of the main page, whereas in the second case, main page needs to be recompiled when the included page gets changed. Okay, so these are the differences between the include action tag and include directive. Now let us go to the next sort of tag, which is called as forward tag. First we have seen the param tag, include tag. The third one is forward tag. Forward tag means the current page stops processing the current request and forwards the request to another page. For that reason we make use of this forward tag. Here the execution never returns to the original page or it never returns to the calling page. You can go through the syntax JSP : forward, page is equal to some page name or file name what we are going to have. Or the syntax can be given like this also, that is along with the param tag JSP : forward, page is equal to some file name, along with that some parameter name and parameter value has been given and the ending tag for JSP forward. Okay. Now let us look through one example for this JSP forward action tag. Forward action tag, this is without parameter. What we have seen here is with parameter, this is without parameter. So here you can see that within the headings JSP forward, page is equal to print date.jsp. So during the execution of this current page, once it comes across the forward page, automatically the control goes to the print date.jsp. It never comes to the original page again. So once it goes to the print date.jsp, there what has been printed, an instance of the util calendar of the current date has been taken, from that current time has been grabbed, that has been printed or executed as a scriptlet. Okay, so this will happen in a forward tag. Now let us look through the next tag, which is called as action tag, that is useBean action tag. useBean action tag means this is only meant for the usage of beans through JSP actions. Always this tag will try to instantiate a Java bean. Instantiating the Java bean means it is going to create an object for the Java bean class. Okay, it is going to create an object as well as embed the object into the JSP page. Along with the useBean tag, we can make use of two more tags called get property and set property. Now you can go through JSP use bean. Use bean means it is nothing but creating a new instance of a bean class. Along with that bean, ID will be there, which represents the name of the object. Class will be there, the Java bean class from which the object gets instantiated. So here we can go through the syntax of this. We are going to create a factorial using bean class, JSP use bean. This is a use bean action tag. ID of this class is going to be fact, and class name is bean.factorial. That is bean is going to be a package. Under that factorial class has been taken, bean.factorial. Of course, this statement is very much equivalent to the scriptlet which is given below, bean.factorial FACT. FACT is nothing but the object which corresponds to this class name is equal to new bean.factorial of. It is nothing but creating an object. So instantiating an object for a bean.factorial class is equivalent to giving use bean ID is equal to fact, where ID is equal to fact is nothing but an instantiation of a bean.factorial class. Next, along with this use bean property which instantiate an object for the class, we can have two more property which is used for reading and writing the value for the object. That is called a set property and get property. Get property means it reads and outputs the value of the bean property. You can go through JSP get property, where name is equal to name of the bean and property is equal to name of the property. We can go through that JSP get property, name is equal to fact. Yeah, because fact is going to be the instantiation of the class. Then property is equal to value. This is very much equivalent to fact dot get value of, calling the function of get value which is available inside the fact object. So instead of invoking the get value function of the fact object, we can make use of the get property tag, where the name fact gives you the object name and the property value gives you the, it is going to fetch some value through a method. Then the subsequent one is called a set property. The set property is used to, the earlier one is used to read and output the value, whereas the second one, set property, is used to write some value into the bean property. Again, the name of the bean has to be given, property of the bean and value of the bean has to be given. You can go through the example. Set property, name is equal to fact, it is nothing but an instantiation of the bean class. Property is equal to some value, where value has been assigned as 5. This is more or less equivalent to the scriptlet fact dot set value of y, which is nothing but initializing some value to the tag. Now, these are the things in which we have seen about the action tags. Let me summarize you once again. We have seen the action tags: parameter, include, forward, use bean, along with set property and get property. Now let us look through the next topic, which is called as JSP implicit objects. Let us see what is an implicit object. JSP implicit objects are created by the web container automatically when a web server processes a JSP page. Suppose whenever a JSP page has been invoked, it has been processed by the web server. During the processing, these implicit objects are created by the web container automatically. So when it takes place during the translation of a JSP page to a servlet source, this implicit objects will be created. Normally, these implicit objects can also be used directly in scriptlets in service methods. First, let us look through what are these implicit objects. There are 9 implicit objects which can be used in a JSP page. The 9 implicit objects are request, response, session, out, application, exception, page, page context object and config object. Now, these are the 9 class file that is, these are the 9 implicit objects from which class file it has been instantiated, that has been displayed on the right hand side. Now let us look through the object one by one. Okay, first and second object are the foremost things which has been used frequently in JSP page, which is a request object. The request implicit object is used to parse the data from the JSP page, or it is used to read the data from the JSP page when some data has been entered by the user. You can go through an example. String UID is equal to request.getParameter of user ID. whereas the user ID in the quotes is some value which has been given by the user on the client side. In order to parse this value and know about or extract this value, this request has been used. Request is an implicit object and get parameter is a method which is available in that implicit object, which is used to parse the value of the input. Similarly, string parse. Password is an input which has been given by the user. The request implicit object parses the value using get parameter method. So, string UID is equal to request.get parameter of user ID, which parses the value which has been given by the user, and password also which has been given by the user. The second object is called as response object. This object is responsible for writing responses to the client. You can see that response.set content type of text bar HTML. So, if I make like this, then text responses or HTML responses can be returned back to the client. If I make the second type response.set content type of image bar GIF, then image files or GIF files can be given to the user. Image or PNG file can be returned back to the user. An application or a PDF file can be sent back to the user. This is what the writing mode. Only making use of this writing mode in response, we can send these kind of items to the user as a response. Okay. The third one is called a session object. This is also a most frequently used implicit object. This is used for storing the user data and to make available on other JSP pages till the user session is active. This object is active for one full session. When the session gets over, this object would be elapsed. Then the fourth one is called out implicit object. Out means this object is used for writing the content to the client, similar to our print statement or echo statement or display statement. Only using the out object, the output can be displayed back to the user or displayed back to the browser. You can go through that out.println of hi. This is used for displaying hi to the HTML page. So, properly formatting output message to the browser and for dealing with the buffer. So, this is the statement which is used for displaying or sending the content or printing the content on the browser. The next object is called as application object. This is used for getting application wide initialization parameters and to maintain useful data across the JSP application. Okay. So, this is used for getting initialized parameters throughout the application. The next object is called as exception object. This object is used for exception handling and for displaying error messages. This object is only available to the JSP pages. This object is only available to the JSP pages which has the attribute is error page, which is set to the value true. Only in those cases we can make use of an exception. We are going to see an exception subsequently. Okay. Next object is called as page object. This JSP page implicit object, this is an instance of the class java.lang.object. Always this object represents the current JSP page. Page object provide reference to the generated servlet class. The object which is related to this is called as page context object. This page context object, actually it is an abstract class implementation. This is used to get and set attributes with different scopes. Then page context object also hold references to other implicit objects also. The last implicit object is called as config object. So, this is used to get JSP init parameters which is configured in the deployment descriptors. So, these are the left hand side we have shown all the 9 JSP implicit objects from which class this object has been instantiated. The class names has been displayed on the right hand side. Okay. So, this is an example which makes use of the JSP implicit objects. So, it makes use of the usage of request object, response object, out and session object. You can go through. This is a HTML file index.html which consists of 2 parameters, user ID and password. User ID and password has been received from the user through form, sign in form. It receives ID and password from user login page. Now, subsequently it comes to the JSP page called check details. In the check details, string UID is equal to request.getParameter of ID, which receives the ID which has been given in the HTML page. Similarly, string password is equal to request.getParameter of pass. You can see that the request implicit object has been used here. So, the password which has been given by the user in the HTML page has been parsed here. Subsequently, the next implicit object has been given session.set attribute of session UID, UID. That is, for this particular user ID, a particular session attribute has been set for him, which says that this session is meant for this particular user. Then you can check that if the user ID is equal to Chaitanya and the password is equal to beginner's book, you can send a response from the server to the client saying that response.send redirect of success.jsp. It is nothing but the response has been redirected to the JSP page success, else the response has been redirected to the JSP page failed.jsp. So, this JSP page verifies the input ID and password and redirects the response either to success or to failed. First, let us look through the success.jsp. If you look through it, again session attribute has been taken. The session.get attribute of session of UID, which gives the ID of the current session of the user, that has been converted into the string and stored in data. So, welcome data, it is nothing but the current sessions, who is going to be, what is going to be the user ID of the current session, that has been fetched and it is concatenated along with welcome. Again, if the current ID of the session has been taken, string has been taken, this is concatenated with a hi saying that the password has been wrong because this is a failed.jsp. Now, let us look through the output of these two programs. You can look through the first one, Chaitanya has been given and the password has been given as beginner's book. Since both of them has been validated here, session.get attribute of session UID, which gives you Chaitanya, we can give an action as welcome Chaitanya. Suppose if the password is not equivalent to it, then obviously if the password is not equivalent, obviously it goes to failed.jsp. In failed.jsp, again the user ID has been captured through the session, but that has been concatenated with the password is wrong. So, you can see the message that hi, the password are wrong, please try again. Okay, so these are the output of these implicit objects. Now, we have seen we have seen a program which makes use of these implicit objects request, response and response, session and out, where out is used to display the content back to the client. So, this is about JSP implicit objects. Now, let us look through the JSP exception handling. Exception means exception also here it is going to be an object which is thrown at the runtime. Exception handling is a process which is used to handle the runtime errors, not the compilation errors. It is used to handle the runtime errors. There may be a possibility that exception may occur at any time in our web application. So, handling of exceptions has to be done in a safer side for web developers. In JSP, in the JSP page, we have two attributes to handle the exceptions. One is called as error page, the other one is called as is error page attribute. By error page element, this kind of thing we used in web.xml file. This is error page attribute is the common one or the frequent one in which we use with the JSP page. Now, let us look through it, or now let us look through the exception handling with the help of an example. Here we are going to create a page to handle the exception. That page is called as error.jsp page. Whenever there is a possibility of exception or whenever there is an idea that an exception may arise, the error page attribute of page directive should be defined, or this error.jsp is going to define the attribute of error page. If we go through the example, it will be very clear to you. There are three pages, JSP pages. One is called index.jsp, which is used for getting input values. The second one is called process.jsp. This is used for dividing two numbers and displaying the results. The third one is called error.jsp. This is used for handling the exception. Here only we will set the attribute of is error page attribute of page directive. So, whenever there is a possibility an error may occur in the process, this error.jsp will be invoked automatically. You can see the example. This is index.jsp. in which the action, once the submit button has been clicked here, the action will go to process.jsp. The content of index.jsp is nothing but it is going to have two text boxes, input type equal to text, name equal to n1 and n2. Both these text boxes will accept some values. Once the submit button has been clicked, it will go and call the process.jsp. Now let us look through process.jsp. Here we say that at page attribute, if any error occurs or if some error occurs, the error page attribute has been enabled. In those cases, you go and call error.jsp. This is what the page attribute in which the error page attribute has been enabled. Here you can see request.getParameter, which gets the value of the first text box, request.getParameter of n2, which gets the value of the second text box. Then using integer.parseInt, it has been converted into int a and int b. Int c is equal to a by b, which gives you the division results. Division of two numbers, the result has been printed. Now let us look through this error.jsp. At page is error page is equal to true. If this variable has been, or if this parameter has been set true, it says that if any error occurs in the error page, that is due to the page directive, it has been redirected here, and this is true. It has to say sorry, an exception has been occurred. An exception is some sort of expression has been included which says you that what kind of exception has been occurred. Now you can go through the output of this. There are two text boxes. In the first text box, the value 12 as well as 2 has been given to you. If I just click it, answer is going to be 6. There is no possibility of exception. But you look through this option 12 and 0. Definitely in this case, it will go and call error page is equal to error.jsp. If error.jsp comes, automatically page is error page true, then immediately it says sorry, an exception has been occurred. Apart from that, there is a scriptlet saying percentage equal to exception. So which makes that the exception type is java.lang.arithmetic exception, which is nothing but divide by 0 exception. So this kind of exception has been shown to the user because we have included that kind of exception in a scriptlet expression. That is why this has been displayed here. Now let us look through how this JSP can be included. Now let us look through JSP session tracking. In a web application, the server may be responding to several clients at a time. So session tracking is a way by which a server can identify the client, and almost the session tracking is more important. As we know, HTTP protocol is stateless, which means client needs to open a separate connection every time it interacts with the server, and server treats each request as a new request. So whenever a request comes, it has to maintain a session for that current request in order to identify the client. So now to identify the client, server needs to maintain the state. And there are several session tracking techniques in order to identify the session. Those session tracking techniques are hidden fields, URL rewriting, cookies and session objects. With the cookies, hidden fields and URL rewriting approaches, that is with the three approaches of cookies, hidden fields and URL rewriting, client always sends a unique identifier along with the request, and server determines the user session based on that unique identifier. Whereas if we follow the session tracking approach using session objects, means all of these, it makes use of all of these three techniques internally or intern. Okay. Now let us look through the session tracking using cookies in JSP. If cookie is associated with the client request, server will associate with the corresponding user session. Otherwise, it will create a unique cookie and send back with response. Now, cookie object means normally it has been created using a name value pair. You can see here cookie is the class name. The second cookie is going to be the object name, which is equal to new cookie of session ID has been given and some unique value for that ID has been given. And in the response, after creating the cookie, this cookie has been added to the response from the server side. This is an example which is used for handling cookies in JSP pages. A form has been created here. It uses post method, action is equal to cookie2.jsp. So, once the submit button has been clicked off, it goes and executes the cookie2.jsp. Here username has been accepted using the text type. Now, once submit has been given, it goes to cookie2.jsp. Again in cookie2.jsp, it request.getParameter of name, which parses the username. Using the username, a small cookie object has been created from the cookie class. Then once the small object of cookie has been created, it is immediately added to the response object, response.addCookie of that cookie object. Then the age of the cookie has been set as 50 cross 50, which is the time is in minutes, some 50 minutes has been given. And again it has given an anchor tag cookie3.jsp if we want. The cookie3.jsp is nothing but if you click on it, it will display the value of the earlier cookie which has been created. So, this is the display the value of the cookie. It tries to get how many cookies are there or how many cookies are parsed from the user side that has been taken through the request object. All of them are stored in an array called cookies. So, in the subsequent for loop, the length of the cookies has been determined using I, and for every cookie it tries to get the name, and if it equals NAME, then for that particular name it gives hello cookies of that particular value. Okay. So, in this session we have learnt about the JSP action tags and the various types of action tags and its uses, and we have learnt about the various implicit objects of JSP along with their examples and who is going to be the frequently used implicit object. We have learnt about the usage of Java beans, and we have learnt about the session tracking of JSP and how to enable the session tracking using cookies. Thank you.